a great part of what I do is that I have the opportunity to see what different countries are doing and identify the best practice to take from one country to another, or the challenges that they have and how we can come up with solutions together, or how we can adopt best practices from other parts of the world.
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello and welcome to episode 196 of the Shipping Podcast. As you know, I'm counting down to episode 200. I wonder what will happen then. I don't know. Sometimes I think that maybe I have proven myself and my idea to you. So now is the time to stop this project. And then I meet someone I think you need to listen to. And here we go again. I know that I should let the audience decide. Maybe I should do a poll on social media. After all, this podcast is nothing without the audience. And my belief that every conversation matters. So in this episode, you and I will be enlightened about Inter-American Development Bank, a bank working to improve lives in Latin America and the Caribbean. They work with governments, companies, academia, foundations, and others to forge and maintain partnerships that can fill the gap and advance the UN Sustainability Development Goals. This is Agustina Calatayud. I'm sorry for the pronunciation, but she's the lead transportation specialist in the Inter-American Development Bank Transportation Division. I hope you will enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Agustina Calatayud, and I work for the Inter-American Development Bank, which is an international organization that focuses on improving lives in Latin America and the Caribbean.
And where are you based?
I'm currently based in Washington, D.C., but I work with all the countries in our region. But I will move to Colombia in a month. So I will be based in Bogota.
Oh, I see. Exciting.
Very exciting.
What is your background?
I started an international economist, an international trade specialist, but then I think academia and life got me through maritime transportation. So after my bachelor's degree, I studied international economics, international integration, and then planning in the US, transportation planning. And I was very much focused on road transportation. And I think it was just chance that got me into maritime transportation many years ago.
You fell in love.
I did.
With the maritime industry. So you have stayed here after that. Yes. The reason for me asking is always, how do we recruit people? And there are so many people who says, it just happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are losing out on a lot of great talent if we are just waiting for people to fall into this industry, like we did.
Exactly. So in my case, it was, I think, two things. One was that the first assignment I got when I started working at the IDB, or the Inter-American Development Bank, was a project to improve maritime transportation in the Caribbean island. And then I realized, I was working on road transportation, but then for many countries like these Caribbean islands, they depend on maritime transportation for everything. So I think that was super exciting. And on the other side, my little sister, she's a year younger than me. She is a very talented maritime transportation specialist, and she was working for huge shipping companies. And in our conversation, she excited me about working in this industry as well. And later on, I got the opportunity to do my PhD in maritime transportation at Newcastle University. It's a very prestigious university in naval architecture and maritime transportation. So I think that was the last bit that I was needing to get really, really into this field.
Yeah, it's when you start to listen to someone who's already passionate about the maritime industry that
Mm-hmm.
you can't sort of say stop.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So the IDB, what is that? Could you please
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, sure. So it's an international organization. There's the World Bank, the international organization that works on promoting reducing poverty, promoting economic development throughout the world. And then there are regional specialized international organizations. And the one that I work for is the leading international organization for Latin America and the Caribbean. So we have 48 member countries, 26 are from Latin America, and the other countries are from other parts of the world, like let's say Sweden, for example, many European countries, Asian countries. And what we do is we promote social and economic development, sustainability in Latin America through all the different topics from health to education to infrastructure to maritime transportation within infrastructure as well.
So how many people are working there?
4,000 people.
Wow. And how many are interested in maritime? How many work with that? Do you know?
No, I would say 4 out of 4,000.
Okay, so we got a void here that we need to fill. More people
Yes.
at the IDB to work with maritime. So I understand that you have been focusing a lot on port and infrastructure and land transportation to and from the sea.
Yes, yes, yes. So I have been focusing on that through two different ways. One is through academia. I'm also part of Newcastle University research professional, and within the IDB, I'm the head of research in transportation. And part of what we do research on many different topics, like, for example, the relationship between urban congestion and emissions, but also on logistics. And in logistics, we are working a lot on maritime transportation. So that's one side of what I do. And the other side is through my work, we can assist countries in developing roadmaps for transitioning into decarbonizing maritime transportation, port infrastructure development, also women in maritime transportation. So I touch a little bit the two worlds, academia and also the practitioners and the policy side of it.
You sound like me, a little bit of everything.
Yes.
Yeah, but that makes life interesting, I think, because you need different perspectives on what you do and why you do things. And also the entire industry, the maritime industry, needs to have a perspective more from the outside in. Usually we do it from the inside out.
Yes.
And then we complain that no one knows about us.
Yes, especially now that, within in logistics, everything is becoming so integrated, and it's so important that it is that way, right? For more efficiency, for better management of risks. So it's great to have perspectives from outside, the hardcore of the shipping world.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you see the future then for the maritime industry?
So I can say, like, for example, for the global south, right? Let's take that perspective that might be a little bit different. So in the global south, we face many challenges because at the same time that we need to increase efficiency in our port operations and in the interface between the port and the hinterland, we still have a huge gap in road infrastructure, quality, and development. But at the same time, we need to start facing now the same challenges that more advanced countries with better port infrastructure have, like decarbonization, like digital transformation. So for us, we need to be very, very pragmatic and also, having the big picture, but at the same time, focusing on the low-hanging fruits that we can achieve in order to promote also those more challenging goals that are decarbonizing and digital transformation. Because what happens usually is like, people might think that there are phases, like phase one, yes, we develop our infrastructure. Phase two, we focus on decarbonization and digital transformation. It's not like that. We need to be very creative on, merging the two phases.
Yeah. It's the Industry Revolution 4.0 as well. I mean, everything is happening at the same time.
Yes.
And also so many crises at the moment that we are sort of coming out of or is in the middle of. And everything is, it's influencing all of us in many different ways. How do you cope with that, being a banker?
We are a special kind of bank, I have to say, because we do provide loans to countries in order to, if they want to improve, let's say, their port infrastructure or the roads that connect main hub in the hinterland with the port. We provide loans at a very, very concessional interest rate, but we also focus on improving the institutional environment, because we work with the public sector in improving the institutional environment and also the policies and the regulations that need to be in place to improve the efficiency of national logistics as a whole. And as well, we do research in order to help policymakers make decisions that are based on hard data, that are informed. So we do a little bit of everything, and that's super interesting about the work that we do in international organizations. We do not focus only, on loans as if we were a commercial bank, but we also work on research as well.
The development that we are now looking for, where does it start? Is it from the policy people who are doing the policies, or is it from the industry, the ports, or is it from, where does it start? Who are the forerunners in this transformation?
That's a great question, Lena. Really, really great question. Because for a long time, many have focused on the policy side. But then I think during the last 2 decades, we understood that the answer to that is in the collaboration between the private and the public sector. Because maritime transportation nowadays is mainly a private sector field, right? But we need adequate policies so that private sector can work efficiently. So I think it's in the collaboration, and that's one of the things that we should thrive. We should do more as third party in this relationship between public and private. Also, academia needs to take place in that, is to, enhance trust in that collaboration. The port communities are things that you might see a lot in Europe, these meetings in ports like Hamburg and Antwerp. These port communities are more solid. We need to strengthen that relationship in the global south.
Yeah, I don't know about Latin America, but for instance, here in Sweden, some of the ports are owned by the municipality.
Mm-hmm.
Not the government, but the municipality.
Mm-hmm.
So then you got a different view maybe on my hometown. No, not mine, but if I live in a smaller town on the coast in Sweden, and then I'm a politician, and maybe I don't see the entire picture of global trade and all of that. I'm not saying that they don't, but some of them might not. Who owns the ports in Latin America? Are they owned by governments or?
Fewer and fewer are owned by governments, national governments. More, especially in the last, I would say, 20 years, we went to a more private sector-led format in port ownership. It's more a concession. The ports own it, but they give it in a concession to private operators, and those private operators are the big companies in the world. But there's something that we, historically, many of our big cities developed, as in many cases in Europe, they developed around ports. And so we have huge cities right now, like Buenos Aires, like Lima, that are in the middle. The ports are in the middle of the cities. That 10 million people cities. So more and more, there's, even if the ownership is, the national government is the owner of the land and its concession to a private operator, we need the local community and the municipal government to take part in that relationship, because they also have a lot to say, for example, in the demand management in transportation, how the city is organized so there are efficient flows between the port and the hinterland.
Yeah. And then I was thinking about the hinterland. Sometimes rail and road is owned by the government, or run by the government. So is that a piece of the puzzle which doesn't really fit before you start thinking about it? Or am I totally wrong now when I'm thinking that there is one set of ownership and rules around the water, and then on land by the water, and then you got the rest of the transportation, which might be owned or have different rules because it's on land in that nation?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I sort of thinking, is my thinking wrong?
No, what you're saying is right. So the national government always have different offices, one dedicated to road transportation, rail, and then maritime transportation or port infrastructure. The key around that is policy making, right? That policy making is not done only focusing on one sector. Let's say that the road sector doesn't talk to the maritime people in the same within the same ministry, but they collaborate. And also, because on top of that, you have the different operators, private operators that are running the trains, that are running the port, the truckers. And I think digital transformation is coming to help coordinate the multiple actors that are taking part in the operations, in port related operations.
Yeah. And then we got new challenges, because then we're talking cybersecurity on top of that. I listened to someone talking about that the other day.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Everything is now cybersecurity when it comes to digital. I think maybe we should also talk a little bit about the positive side of digital transformation.
Yeah, so we've recently carried out a study about the state of digital transformation in transportation in Latin America. And we also focus within that huge overall transportation, we focus on maritime transportation. And we found out that most of the people think about the positive side, right? How they can make their operations more efficiently, how they can reduce cost, improve sustainability, improve visibility with their, not only with with the shippers, but also with custom authorities. So most of them are thinking about the positive side. Perhaps we should talk publicly, in the media more about the positive. And there has been a lot of articles in the newspapers and online about that. And I think that's what we need to balance. There are a lot of good things about digital transformation.
I totally agree with you. I'm happy that you're saying that. So how can we as an industry become more visible to the general public? What can we do? Do you have any shortcuts from that one?
Well, I think that the COVID pandemic gave us a great opportunity. One of the things that makes me really amazed about maritime transportation is that it's so important, but it's so invisible to to everyday's life, right? But the COVID-19 pandemic gave us the opportunity, those heroes that kept running the ports, kept running the ships, were able to provide us with goods while we were in our houses. And so I think that's a great ways, podcast like the one you are doing, reach out to the wider community to make them know about the lives of seafarers, the people that are doing journalism, the people that are doing also research around policymakers, people that do advocacy. So I think that's a great way. And technology, again, gives us a great opportunity with podcasts, with social networks, reaching out to people. But let's, embrace the opportunity that COVID gave us and, make visible how important this industry is to our lives.
Yeah, because all of a sudden, all governments needed to understand maritime because they needed to be involved both when it came to allowing ships into ports and also to allowing seafarers to leave and or get vaccinated. So that was a coordination done. A lot of hard work, I understand that, but all of a sudden, all the politicians needed to understand how it works. So I think we got a momentum now when they are still in office. If there is an election, we have an election coming up here in 2 weeks. So
yes,
yeah, there will probably be changes in our government, but still we need to just educate the politicians on the highest level how important the maritime industry is.
Yes, we're already seeing it. Like even at the top level, presidents talking about supply chains.
Yeah,
Congress talking about supply chain. That's a great attention to a sector that was never in the news compared to health, education, other labor. So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
And also an opportunity to, as you said, talk about the good stuff, because there were also some horrendous stories in the news during the pandemic for the seafarers and for how long they had to stay on board and so on. But
yes,
we need to tell the good stuff.
Yes.
And also all the support that actually the seafarers got. There were so many things happening behind the curtains that no one saw, but I was standing close by, so I could see how the entire maritime industry focused and collaborated, as you say, which is so important to convey the message of the importance of the seafarer. Let's talk about alternative fuels and fuels for the future and things like that. How do you work with that from the bank's point of view? I'm thinking about electrification and things like that, which is now also part of the transformation we are going through.
Yes, we are working on at different levels, right, or layers. Let's say at the port level, we are working with providing support to improve research on new fuels, and at the same time improving research, but also the development of plans for transforming those ports into more sustainable one. And another important thing regarding that is that we are helping ports to improve their forecasting, because most of the ports, around the world, but if we think about Caribbean islands and that so much they depend on ports, maritime transportation, we are helping them to improve the resiliency of those ports if we think about climate change, which is getting worse. And affecting particularly those islands that depend so much on maritime transportation. So we are working on that. And at the same time, if we move up one layer, we are working on public policies. What are the policies that need to be in place to incentivize transitioning to a greener maritime transportation, or to the blue economy, as one of the interviewees was saying a few podcasts ago? What are the incentives and what are the regulations that need to be in place? But there's a limitation to that, because maritime, there's so much, or there's as much as national policymakers can do when this is a global industry. So there's going to be a very interesting discussion on who has to regulate where when it comes to greening the maritime transportation. But the International Maritime Organization is doing a great job in pushing forward the European Union, and we are taking them examples of what we need to do in countries that are a step behind, because we have been focusing on other more important issues like developing infrastructure, but we are taking those as leaders of where we need to aim to.
And yesterday I met some ship owners and they said, it's taking too long. We need to get everyone on board now to do this transformation. And in a way, I think they felt like if they are forerunners, ship owners who are forerunners and actually really try to do the green shipping, dark green or very blue, or how we now should put it, they don't get any benefits from that, from being the forerunners.
Yet we need champions, right? We need champions. Maybe the benefits are not in economic terms yet, but we need those forerunners. We need those champions that also, put everybody together. As I was saying before, with poor communities, champions are always needed in order to put together private and public sector. And those champions sometimes come from the private sector, other times from the public, or other times it's, there are 2 or 3 from both sides that make the momentum in order to move forward. But I'm very confident because we do have great organizations and policymakers that are pushing towards that, and we will get to that. It's taking time. It's a change that it's a great change, and changes take time. Hopefully it will take less time than in the past, but now we're getting to the urgency of making that step.
I agree with you. I always agree with my guests. I wonder why. But it's also got to do with the next generation, trying to recruit the next generation.
Yes.
Because I think there is a different set of values that they cherish more. And that's got to do with climate change and all of that. But also my favorite soapbox with diversity. Do you see any developments when it comes to diversity and inclusion?
I do see more now. I do see in public positions, I do see more inclusion, more women, younger women working on that. And I do see something that is very positive, like organizations at the national and international level, like Women in Maritime Transportation, WISTA. So they have chapters in the different countries. And I think those are great opportunities because they make visible the women that work in the industry. And I do see something that now it's a great opportunity. And again, going to digital transformation. And the maritime transportation is going to be like in other areas of transportation, it's going to be a technology business in the future. Of course, there are going to be ships, but it's going to be a technology. Data is going to be so important that it's going to be big parts of the organizations, that sector. And one side of where we could include more women is that we need coders. We need people with skills on data management, right? Data generation. And women can do a great job about that. But we need to go back to the universities and we need to get more women study STEM, study informatics and computing science. And we need to recruit them for our industry because, of course, there are so many technology companies out there that maybe maritime transportation is not the goal for those people that are getting trained in data science or in computer science. But I think that's going to be a great opportunity to include more women in our industry.
Yes, I think so. But also, I've been interviewing someone who's been working both in the maritime industry and in the tech and startup industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different packages that you are getting if you are getting employed in the maritime industry or in the tech industry. So I think we need to maybe take a good look at how we express ourselves, how we sell our positions that we want young people to try out for, and also to look upon what are we offering compared to the tech companies.
I completely agree.
Because otherwise they will all be snatched away just in front of our noses. They will go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they can also, and I appreciate that it's different in different countries. And in my country, we are maybe much further ahead when it comes to parental leave and things like that. But I also think that the pandemic show that you can work from home and you can do things differently.
Yes.
So we need to go not back to normal, but to the new reality, the new normal. And that is still to be set.
Exactly.
And I am a little bit afraid that people do not think, they're more focused on getting back on track than thinking a little bit further down the road to think, who do I need here in 5 years or 3 years or tomorrow?
No, of course. And for that, we could look at, kind of our sister industry, the aviation industry, the air transportation industry. Many of the companies there, airlines, people in the IT departments, they're not going back to the office because what they want is to reach out to the world and have all those coders and data scientists and computer scientists working regardless of where they are, but they want to have that talent. And if the airline, of course, they have always been a little bit in advance, but it's too underwhelming to look at the tech sector. Let's look at them, how they are doing it. And perhaps it's something that, we can start thinking about how we manage our human resources so that we can make us more competitive and interesting for the younger generations.
Yeah. I agreed again. I'm sorry. but I think it's important to discuss those things because maybe it's not at the top of mind when you're in the middle of the crisis.
Yes, of course. I think we are in a privileged side here because we don't need to deal with operations and with everyday activities and challenges, but we can look back and have a bigger overview also from other sectors in transportation, and we are that's part of what we do, right? Getting best practices also from other transportation sectors to the maritime side.
And what are you giving the other transportations mod from us? What is the best with us that you're giving them?
I think the coordination that has been achieved at many ports between public and private, between, port maritime operations and customs agencies and safety agencies, phytosanitary controls, that requires a lot of work. And it's a great practice that can be also translated or taught to the land side. Especially border crossing, for example.
Good. I knew that was something.
Yes, of course. And the integrated, I think the coordination, there are a lot of port community systems where all the information is being gathered and can be accessed by the different stakeholders. That can also be a great practice for land transportation.
Where is the difficulties then in the ports to come on that train or boat to the digital transformation? What are the biggest challenges in there?
I think I can talk for, I would say, the global south, because I know there are ports that are super advanced on that, and Hamburg, Antwerp, Barcelona, LA, but I would say that the challenges that we have is, as I was saying before, these short-term versus long-term, and the needs that we have today versus the need that we think we will have in the future. But since the needs and the challenges that we focus today are so huge, it's difficult, to have a more strategic vision of what we need. The investments needed, it's that they are not. We need to demystify it. Technological investments are not as big as infrastructure investment, and maybe a smaller technological investment can help avoid a bigger infrastructure investment, right? Because we can optimize operations in a port with technology instead of increasing the capacity of the port. But I think it's more about the perspectives, the vision. We need to keep. So I did a study with the World Economic Forum 3 years ago, before the pandemic, about the digital transformation in supply chains. And we repeated that study this year. And it's amazing how the pandemic changed. Before the pandemic, nobody was really focusing on digital transformation, but now it's a key part in their strategic activity. So I think that we are moving in the right way. We just need to keep working on that, and we need a little bit of time in order to convince ourselves or convince everybody that that's the way to go.
I was expecting you to say mindset.
Yes.
That the change of mindset is the hardest one. And in a way, maybe you're saying that, because that's also strategy.
Exactly.
It's easier to say, no, we don't change anything. It's so much easier and it's so much safer and comfortable than to change.
Yes, but then the pandemic came and we had to force that change, right? And people are changing their mindset and we are in the right path.
Good things can come out of a crisis, even if you don't believe it once you're in the middle of it.
Exactly. But our data is telling that, right? Before, technology was not a big part of the in the mind and the strategy of the port planners, or in shipping companies in our side of the world. But now is in their top 3. What is keeping them awake at night?
And also just that there is nowadays research area which is called maritime informatics. I mean, they started to work on that one a couple of years ago, but I think more ports have now realized that this is what we need to understand.
Yes, exactly. And we are seeing that through the data. So it's great that we can prove that this change is now in place.
So what's the best part of being in your place, to be heading the IDB Maritime Transportation Division? What's the best thing about that?
I think a great part of what I do is that I have the opportunity to see what different countries are doing and identify the best practice to take from one country to another, or the challenges that they have and how we can come up with solutions together, or how we can adopt best practices from other parts of the world. It's also great to have different instruments to help countries. As I was saying, it's not only about infrastructure investments, but it's also about supporting communities of women, supporting diversity, supporting research, supporting the development of new policies. I think we get the whole package when we work for these international organizations, without having to be involved in the challenges that everyday port operators have. So we are able to have a more detached and perhaps more, broader perspective of the sector. And we also see other transportation modes, right? And how they interconnect with maritime transportation. So I think it's great. It's a fraction of what we do every day, because the transportation sector is so huge and there are so many needs in different sectors. But it's great that we have the opportunity also to see other sectors and how we can get good practices for the maritime transportation and vice versa.
Well said. So when you're moving now to Colombia, will you be doing the same work there, or is it a different work?
I will be not only heading the transportation research for the Inter-American Development Bank, but also all the operations related to transportation for our bank in Colombia. So I will also be seeing different projects, road transportation, rail, and also I hope that we will be working more and more with the maritime transportation sector.
I had the pleasure of visiting Cartagena when the IMO had their World Maritime Day parallel event in 2019, I think it was, before the pandemic. Such a beautiful place.
It's beautiful, and it's a critical port for for the Western hemisphere.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, it's amazing to have the opportunity to be there and work with so many fantastic people that work and committed people that work every day in that environment.
And so many young people that you can influence.
Yes. And many women as well. Many women.
Yes, I know. I'm a little bit jealous, but best of luck with that.
Thank you.
Who do you think I should interview the next? Who would you be interested in listening to in the Shipping Podcast?
Perhaps, since we were talking about young people, perhaps it will be very interesting, right, to have listen to the perspective from younger generations, the people that are maybe coming out of universities and they have studied something related to maritime transportation, how they see, because they have all this energy, right, and it's great to listen to their perspectives.
Yeah, I get energy out of talking to young people, so I will make that happen.
Thank you.
Maybe I need to have a couple of them in the same episode just to get to see what they are talking about and how they feel, so they don't feel that I'm too old to talk to.
I will definitely listen to that episode.
Okay. Thank you, Agustina, for taking the time and speak to me and being part of the Shipping Podcast.
No, thank you, Lena. I really, really appreciate the work that you do, the advocacy that you do for the sector. And it's great to listen to your podcast, even if we are in different parts of the world. So that's a beauty also of technology.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much for those kind words, and hope to meet you in real life one day.
Yes, of course. I'm sure we will.
Thank you, Agustina. Every day you learn something new is a good day in my book. I had no idea of your hard work to improve lives in Latin America and the Caribbean. Call me ignorant. But at least now I can help you spread the word to at least a few thousand people listening to this. And that makes me happy. The next episode is also focusing on maritime transport and the beautiful part of the supply chain, the maritime one. So stay tuned for more. Until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a Shipping Podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.